The August paper flower is the poppy. Hi, and welcome back to my craft room. My name is Kelsey. I also call myself Dinosaur Mama, and I am doing a paper poppy flower today for the month of August. If you are new to my craft room, welcome. You can find the link below to the blog post, which will host the free SVG file to make your own paper poppy. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe. That way you have new tutorials brought to you every single week. And now we can go ahead and jump over into Cricut Design Space. So this SVG file, along with a lot of my flower SVG files, is pretty simple. It is all grouped together. If you're going to resize it, make sure you resize the whole file. As is, you can scroll down and click on the poppy flower. It's just about 2.5 inches. You can make it bigger or smaller depending on how big you want your poppy flowers to be. I gave a lot of leaves for this. Again, you can go in and delete them if you want to, or you can make more. Totally up to you. And I have this here as well for the calyx. So if you're not planning on putting this on floral wire, then you can just delete the calyx and the leaves, or if you want to cut the leaves separately, whatever you want to do. Once you are ready to make it, you can hit make. And I cut everything out using the medium cardstock setting, but you should always test your own materials. So let's get started on assembly. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm using like a medium-sized ball tool to roll out those petals. You can stack your petals if you want to and do them together. I'm just going around the edges and then kind of rounding in the center. If you don't have a ball tool, you can also use like a teaspoon, a metal teaspoon, to round it out. I'm talking about the kind that you would use to measure a teaspoon, not the kind you eat with. I should clarify that one. I do it in my other tutorials. But I'm just using, again, a ball tool. I got mine for cheap off of Temu forever ago, and they're great. They also have them on Amazon for really cheap. And I'll have all the materials and tools linked below. But I'm doing this on a piece of foam, and I don't have one of those fancy mats. I just folded a piece of foam over itself to roll it out. You can also curl them by hand if you really want to. It's not a big deal. Now for these, I just took that same kind of medium-sized ball tool and barely rounded it in the center. I just want a slight curve to them, not a ton. So they're not really rounded, I would say. Then for the last little piece, which is the center yellow piece, I used a really small ball tool, and I tried to round this as much as I could. So I went around each of the little spikes, and then I also went around the center to create a really nicely rounded center. So once that is done, all of your pieces are shaped, and assembly is really easy because it's just layering these now together. So we're going to start with our 2 back pieces and use hot glue, but you can also use craft glue if that's what you prefer for these. These are pretty simple flowers to put together. So you're going to grab your craft glue and go right into the center of your flower, and then you're going to offset the first layers of petals. I feel like that was kind of a given so that you're covering up your space here. And then we're going to do our 2 black layers, and of course you're going to do the same thing where you're offsetting those. If you prefer the look, you can just stick to 1 black layer if you prefer. I don't know, I just like having like a lot of volume in my flowers, so it's totally up to you. And so just kind of be as gentle and patient with yourself with this as possible, because for some reason I feel like whenever I layer my flowers, especially these centers, sometimes it's hard to get them to like off center. I feel like they like magnetize back to each other. And then for the last one, the yellow, we're just going to place this right in the middle of the black. And if you're just making these flat for like, let's say wall decor or a card or, you know, a cake topper or whatever, then your paper flower is done. But if we want to put it on a stem, this is a pretty easy flower to put on a stem. So the first thing you'll do is poke a hole into your calyx. There was a point in time where I was putting the holes in the calyxes beforehand, but the thing is that when Cricut does those really small holes, it just doesn't work that great. I am using a pretty thin wire, like a gauge-wise. I want to say it's either a 20 or a 22. And I made a little loop, and now I'm just going to fold that loop down, and I'm going to glue it to one of the parts of the calyx that's sticking up. So that one's pretty easy to stick on, especially because the paper flower itself isn't heavy. I feel like when your flowers are heavier, you need to kind of put your floral wire into the flower, but for this one, we didn't need to do that. So I am just going to glue that on to my little calyx. That way it's stuck on. And now we're gonna glue this onto the bottom of our poppy. I highly suggest cutting your floral wire sooner than I did. You can make them as big or as long or short, sorry, not as big or as small, as long or as short as you want to. And again, I prefer hot glue for this. I've never tried to glue a calyx on with craft glue. I'm not sure if that would work. So we're going to use a little bit of hot glue. Just be careful when you're doing this since these are small. And we're going to glue that right onto the back of our poppy, right in the center. And now our stem will be attached. And then the last thing to do is just shape our leaves just a little bit. I just curled it with my fingers and I glued those on with some hot glue. I ended up putting just 3 leaves onto my poppy stem. You can do as many or as, little as you want. You could skip the leaves, but whatever you want to do. I tried to make them as poppy-ish as possible. I don't know why, but the leaves remind me of some sort of herb. So I put a little bit of hot glue on the end, and then I just used my finger to kind of roll it around the floral wire and then glue it back onto itself. And then you can just shape it with your fingers. There's really no rhyme or reason to how I did it. Just giving it a little bit of shape. So a little bit of hot glue with the floral wire. And that's really all you have to do for the poppy flower. I feel like this was a super easy and super quick flower to do. If you are new to making paper flowers, I have a ton of paper flower SVGs over on my website. They are all free to download. I've been doing a paper flower that represents every single month, and I actually did 2 for 1 month. So I'm up to 9 paper flowers for the year. And if you want the links to those, they will be listed down below in the description as well. And so I still have 4 more flowers to do minimum for this year. So I'm super excited to bring those to you as well. And then, I don't know, maybe I'll start doing state flowers or something. And that's it. Once you have your leaves glued onto your poppy stem, you're done. And so the poppy was pretty easy to make. I really like these flowers. They're beautiful. They're simple. So I hope you enjoyed making the poppy with me. Thank you for joining me as we made our paper poppy. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It helps me so much. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That way you get new crafty videos every single week. And share this with one of your craft friends who has been wanting to make paper poppies. I will see you soon in my craft room, and stay crafty.